On April 26, 1986, one of the world's worst disasters occurred in the Ukrainian city of Pripyat, then part of the USSR. There was an explosion caused by a flawed reactor designed at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, which spewed radiation into the air. Only Chernobyl and Fukushima have been rated as a level 7 on the International Nuclear Event Scale, and that's the highest scale goes. The city of Pripyat was evacuated and a total of 31 people died as an immediate result of the accident itself, while as many as 500,000 were affected. The destruction was so massive that it took nearly 1 million people to clean up Chernobyl. In 2011, Pripyat became a tourist attraction, and 3 decades later, the ghost town is still captured by photographers who snap haunting images of abandoned toys and dilapidated buildings. Lore and legends surround the area, from ghosts, Chernobyl mutants, and radioactive animals to a strange, ominous blackbird that some believe to be the harbinger of disaster. In addition to these stories, you'll find creepy true tales of people and places that fell victim to a catastrophic nuclear meltdown. If you like true stories of the macabre, strange, and paranormal, then please click on that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you can be notified every time a new episode of Grim Events is uploaded. Without further ado, I give you creepy stories of Chernobyl. Number 1. The Ghost of Chernobyl. As with any site where a number of people have lost their lives, Pripyat is rife with ghost stories. Andrei Korshakov, a nuclear physicist from New York, told one such story after visiting the area in 1997. Korshakov said he went to the power station at 7:30 a.m. and went to the number 4 reactor sarcophagus, which is where the explosion occurred. He could not go inside due to the radiation, but as he took radiation readings, he heard someone screaming for rescue from a fire inside. I ran upstairs to tell someone, but they said that when I entered the reactor control room, I was the first person to open that door in 3 years, and the only way to get inside the old reactor is through the doors I came in through. If someone had gone inside the reactor when I was not looking, they would have tripped an alarm that goes off when the reactor doors open mechanically. The reactor door requires a password and a handprint, yet someone or something was inside. Later that evening, as we were eating dinner outside the building by the river next to the plant, a floodlight turned on in the room of the installation. There was no way anyone could be inside. As we ate, we figured that there was a power surge or something. Then, just as my colleague said that, the light turned off. Number 2. The Soviet government sent in soldiers when the meltdown destroyed robot cleaning crews. After evacuating the residents of Pripyat, the city bordering the Chernobyl power plant, the Soviet government sent robots into the exclusion zone to contain the meltdown and put out a raging fire. The excessive radiation in the air prevented the robots from doing their work, so the government reportedly rounded up a bunch of soldiers and gave them a choice. Serve 2 years in Afghanistan where the Soviets were engaged in a brutal conflict against Mujahideen, or spend 2 minutes shoveling sand onto the exposed reactor at Chernobyl. Soldiers who chose Chernobyl were known as liquidators. At the time of the meltdown and into the 21st century, Ukrainians believe vodka prevents the adverse effects of radiation, so liquidators typically took a shot of vodka and shoveled sand onto the exposed reactor for 2 minutes. Most liquidators passed or contracted an illness due to radiation poisoning. Number 3. Chernobyl's mutant animals. Many reports of deformed and strange beasts near Chernobyl can be found all over the internet, indicating that radiation had severe effects on the animal population. Some severe mutations were seen right after the accident. The piglet in the photo suffered from dibicus and is on display at the Ukrainian National Chernobyl Museum. It was born near the site of the explosion. Contemporary animals, however, are typically okay, even though their internal radiation levels are higher than most. They do not suffer significant genetic mutations, though some species have issues. For instance, some birds have developed smaller brains and some rodents have decreased litters or do not live as long. However, overall animal populations seem to be doing better now than they were whenever humans were farming there before. According to a 2016 report, some species are actually increasing within the exclusion zone, yet scientists continue to debate what the long-term effects of exposure will be for the animals that live there. Number 4. The elephant's foot. Elephants are cute, so you'd think anything named after their feet would also be cute. You'd be wrong, however, as this particular euphemism refers to a flow of hot lava that will end you after 300 seconds. That's a mere 5 minutes of exposure, and not quickly either, as your life will reportedly slowly cease within 2 days. According to Kyle Hill in an article for Nautilus, this black lava was discovered by an emergency responders who entered a stream corridor underneath the number 4 reactor. The crew's radiation sensors warned them to stay away. What happened was this. The radioactive particles got so hot they melted and turned into a flow of lava, which in turn melted through the bottom of the reactor vessel and all the way down until it cooled enough to form the big glob you see in the picture. Photos of the elephant's foot were taken via a camera on wheels. It was determined that the blob consisted mostly of concrete and other materials that the fuel melted on the way down. Still, going near it was a bad idea, and experts advise not going near it even today. Number 5. The Blackbird of Chernobyl. According to legend, several people began to see a large, winged creature with red eyes in early April before the Chernobyl disaster. The creature became known as the Blackbird of Chernobyl, and many have drawn parallels between this creature and America's Mothman. Both creatures were supposedly seen right before disasters. The Mothman was spotted right before the Silver Bridge collapsed in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, a tragedy that cost 46 people their lives. They're also similar in appearance. Large, black, winged figures with glowing scarlet eyes. Survivors of the Chernobyl disaster reported seeing the creature flying away from the reactor. Reports of the bird stopped immediately after the disaster. Those who believe that the bird was a paranormal entity regard it as a harbinger of terrible things to come, while others believe it was merely a black stork. Number 6. The Chernobyl Amusement Park. The Pripyat Amusement Park should have been a fun addition to the town. It was slated to open on May 1st, 1986, just days after the disaster. Obviously, the park would never open and has simply been left to rust. The amusement park had a Ferris wheel, bumper cars, a paratrooper attraction, and swing boats. Even though high levels of radiation still exist in the mossy areas of the park, it's a popular backdrop for ruin photographers. The park was also used as a setting in the game Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. It bears similarity to Six Flags New Orleans, another eerily abandoned amusement park, which has been empty since Hurricane Katrina. Number 7. An entire village was bulldozed, only its kindergarten remained standing. Kopachi Village was a small village about 4.5 miles southwest of the Chernobyl plant. After evacuating the village, Soviet authorities found such high radiation levels in the area that they decided to bulldoze everything in Kopachi, other than the elementary school, and bury it all in the soil. Unbeknownst to those who made this decision, burying radioactive materials resulted in their radioactivity leaking into the ground. In the case of Kopachi, the radioactivity of building became part of the soil and water table, making the region uninhabitable for generations. The surviving school is an attraction for ruin photographers who have captured eerie Kopachi images of old toys, school materials, dolls, and stuffed animals 3 decades on from the meltdown. Number 8. A generation of so-called stalkers romanticized the ruins. In 2014, Slate ran an extensive piece by Holly Morris on a subcultural phenomenon known as stalkers. These young Russians and Ukrainians, almost all of whom are men, romanticize the apocalyptic environment of the exclusion zone, the cordon-off area surrounding Chernobyl. They sneak in, explore buildings, sleep in ruins, and even bring Geiger counters along to see how much radiation they expose themselves to on their journeys. Stalkers take their name from characters in the novel Roadside Picnic, which was turned into a classic Soviet film entitled Stalker and directed by Andrei Tarkovsky. The term refers to thieves who sneak into zones harboring lethal phenomena, places to which authorities have forbidden entrance. Some stalkers of the exclusion zone are inspired by a Ukrainian first-person shooter game called s.t.a.l.k.e.r, which is extremely popular. By sneaking into the zone, they can live out scenes from the game while sifting through years of frozen history. Soviet ID cards and other objects are left behind are tactical evidence of a mythical world many of these young people grew up hearing about but never lived through. Stalkers court danger by eating fruit that grows in the zone, while sharing tales of ancestors who lived and worked there when the disaster struck. They dress in paramilitary gear and wear gas masks, baklavas, and other such covers over their faces. Number 9. Chernobyl was a cover-up. The documentary The Russian Woodpecker explores a conspiracy theory as explained by Ukrainian artist Fyodor Alexandrovich. The theory indicates that the meltdown was actually orchestrated in order to cover up for failure of the Russian woodpecker. The Russian woodpecker was an array radar meant to detect missiles before they'd ever been launched, and was so named for the loud tapping sound similar to a woodpecker pecking on wood. The device made, but it cost 7 billion rubles and didn't work. The woodpecker, formerly called Duga-3, was located very near Chernobyl. Alexandrovich's evidence. The Duga-3 probably didn't work because of the Aurora Borealis messing with the signals, which the Soviets may not have accounted for, and it would have been very bad for Soviet leaders to admit they screwed up. Furthermore, Chernobyl's instability was already well known, as they had issues with the reactors before, so a meltdown would make for a convincing story. How likely is this to be true? Well, it's a complicated plan that would have had to be perfectly executed to succeed, and to experts, that seems pretty unlikely. But some weird stuff did supposedly happen while the crew was making the documentary. including visits from the secret police and the sniper shooting of one of the crew members during the Euromaidan protest. However, this isn't the only Chernobyl conspiracy theory that confounds us. Number 10. 7 survivors seek immortality. A Russian scientist who managed to survive the disaster moved to a very small Greek island called Gavdos with 6 other Russian scientists. They easily made a home there, but some conspiracies suggest that scientists actually went to the island in an attempt to seize control of the Earth or to become immortal. Gavdos has about 50 permanent residents, though it's a popular spot for tourists in the summer. In mythology, the island has been thought of as the real Ogygia, Calypso's mythical island home where the sorceress kept Odysseus captive for 7 years. Vice spoke to a filmmaker making a documentary about the immortality commune of Gavdos, who said that the scientists work on various inventions from inside a compound. They have 7 acres of land given to them by a priest, and they are kind of other residents on the island, often working various projects free of charge. Some think that the Russian scientists are spies, while others think that they survived due to the island's healing properties, but the scientists themselves seem consumed with the idea of immortality and with Greek philosophy. They're even building a temple that they call the Temple of Apollo. Number 11. Aliens saved us from an even worse fate. There's an alien conspiracy that revolves around Chernobyl. Not that the aliens caused the disasters, but that the extraterrestrials saved the human race from utter annihilation. According to the conspiracy, people spotted UFOs around the same time as the Chernobyl explosion. One witness reported seeing an object for about 6 hours. Those who believe that this object was both real and piloted by aliens suggested that the aliens helped tone down radiation levels, preventing an even larger blast. Though the damage was certainly terrible, it wasn't as apocalyptically bad as believers say it could have been. A doctor claimed to have seen a similar UFO 3 years later at a time when a reactor was sending off high radiation levels. Similar conspiracies surround the Fukushima disaster. Number 12. Chernobyl's ruined photography is fake. Photographer Darman Richter claims that the abandoned Chernobyl we often see in photos is not real, but rather a facade meant to make money off of people who love ruin porn. Richter visited Pripyat and said that the city was desolate in many ways and still dangerous. However, he says a lot of the chilling photos we see online have been manufactured by photographers looking to create the perfect horror. I observed countless instances of tourists moving these artifacts around or repositioning furniture for a better shot. I watched a photographer arrange stuffed bears and little dolls so that they sat in line along the edge of a bare metal frame bed. Richter also alleges that the site purposely profits off of disaster tourists, which he believes approximates 10,000 people per year. Number 13. Chernobyl HIV. Rumors have spread that the Chernobyl survivors and their families have some kind of contagious illness, Chernobyl HIV, that can be spread to others. According to a former congressman, Glenn Broder, who wrote about his visit to the area in a blog post for Huffington Post, this stigma impacts the local economy, as companies are less inclined to invest in affected areas. The fake claim, he explains, contributes to the isolation of those who have already been through something horrible, as Browder notes. The tragedy now affects 3 generations, with the last being the grandchildren of Chernobyl, the grandchildren of the original 1986 victims. Although the term isn't a new concept, reports dating back to 1990 referred to Chernobyl AIDS, or the increase in immune deficiency diseases in the meltdown's wake. Number 14. Mutant zombies stalk Pripyat. One common hoax is that the blast mutated humans into flesh-eating zombies that will devour any disaster tourists or researchers that cross their paths. One piece of evidence was a grainy video shot from a helicopter that appeared to show said zombies ripping a man apart limb from limb. In reality, this video was from a 2007 Ukrainian video game called s.t.a.l.k.e.r, S.t.a.l.k.e.r, Shadow of Chernobyl. In the game, the zombies are mutants that are created after a second disaster 20 years after the first, during repopulation efforts. Someone later posted this video on YouTube trying to pass it off as real. It's not. The idea of Chernobyl zombies was revisited in a horror flick called Chernobyl Diaries, in which a group of young disaster tourists decide to check out Pripyat, only to, spoiler, get attacked by zombies. Well guys, there you have it. 14 creepy stories about Chernobyl. Please leave your thoughts and comments below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.